Hello everyone, welcome to this session on tones of passages. In this particular video, we are going to cover 34 tones of passages which will ensure that any question which you encounter in RCs, you are able to identify the tone of the passage very easily. This particular video is going to serve as a repository for you to revise tones of passages again and again. Now, to start off, the first couple of tones which we are taking up are acerbic and aggressive. Now, when it comes to acerbic, acerbic majorly means harsh, severe, bitter. This is basically used when the author is trying to showcase the disagreement with a particular theory, or he is expressing his disdain towards a particular group of people, person, concept, ideology, and is expressing the disdain towards it. This is called acerbic tone. This is followed by aggressive. Aggressive is basically where you are trying to be unprovoked, offensive, where no one has tried to come up with any particular act or say a way to write, where you are talking about a particular concept but no one is trying to offend you, but the author is taking unprovoked offensive, and that is where I would say that the tone of the author is aggressive. So this is all about acerbic and aggressive. Now moving to the next set of tones, first is the angry and the indignant. In this particular tone, when I talk about angry, the author is trying to show the anger in a justified way using facts, figures, rational. Now the major difference between acerbic and aggressive is, as compared to angry, is acerbic and aggressive may be irrational, but angry is always rational. So that is where, if you have both the options, that is acerbic or aggressive as well as angry in your answer in the question, both these options are available, you will go for angry if the author has provided facts, figure and rational for the reason of his anger. You will mark angry as the answer. But if the author has been away from any kind from showing any kind of a rational, then you will go for acerbic and aggressive as your answer. Fourth tone is apathetic. This basically means that the author is trying to be emotionless and unconcerned or indifferent about a particular topic. This is when you will mark apathetic as the answer. Then fifth tone is apologetic. In this, basically the author is trying to express a remorse or a regret or a sorrow towards a thing. This kind of a tone is usually an answer for the passages which are talking about natural disasters, world wars, or any past incidents, riot, or any such catastrophe. So that's where you will mark this as the tone of your passage. In other passages, this may not be the right answer to go for. Sixth one is belligerent, bellicose. This is where the author is trying to be aggressively hostile. Just imagine a scenario where you are pitted into a war against another party, and how you and that particular party who are into war with each other are going to talk. You are going to be aggressively hostile, and that is what this particular tone refers to. This is going to be your answer in very rare cases in the passages, because usually passages will not be very aggressively hostile, but in case they are and they talk in detail about how the two parties pitted or warring against each other would talk, then this will be your answer. The next set of tone is biased. Now, as the word suggests, bias basically is the tone of the passage when the passage is unnecessarily favoring one thing, person or group over another for the personal reasons. Now suppose the passage is such that the author has mentioned two stands and then he is taking one particular stand despite not much of the rational, then that tone is called biased tone. The next one is caustic. Now caustic is synonymous to acerbic tone, where the author is trying to be harsh, severe or bitter in the way of his writing. Now you won't get caustic and acerbic as two different options for the same passage. You will either get caustic or you will either get acerbic. So if a passage is acerbic, it can be caustic. If a passage is caustic, it can be acerbic. So these two will be the same options, or only one of them will appear in your answer options, because they mean one and the same thing. Coming to the ninth tone, which is commiserating, this is basically where the author is trying to express pity or empathy towards a thing. Here, suppose the author is trying to show his sympathy towards a group of people or a particular person who has suffered from certain cultural norms or prejudiced practices, then that particular passage is more about commiserating tone. Now, then the 10th tone is condescending. Here, the author is unnecessarily trying to patronize a particular group, or he's patronizing a particular group of people. Now, this basically indicates an attitude that the author is trying to develop one particular person or a group or an ideology as a very very superior thing to another person or a group or ideology. That is where I would say that the tone of the passage is condescending. Moving to the next one, contemptuous. Here, the author is trying to express the contempt or disdain for a particular subject or a group of people or an ideology, and he is treating the subject in a very, very ridiculous way. Fourth, another point, which I will talk about contemptuous is, remember that contemptuous uh, has certain other synonymous tones as well. Now you may find tones like sarcasm is there, satire is there, then provocative is there as the option, against contemptuous in the same question. As we move forward in the video, we will talk about how those tones are different from contemptuous. But for now, just focus on contemptuous and its meaning, where the author is trying to treat a subject in a very very ridiculous way, expressing the disdain and the contempt towards it. The next one is cynical. Now, in cynical, the author is trying to display a belief that everyone who talks about, or everyone who is portraying any ideology or a methodology or a viewpoint, is all self-centered and is never altruistic in their actions. So passages where the author's view is that anyone who is a part of the society or any organization or any group is driven purely by self-interests, that is cynical tone. That is what is the meaning of cynical tone. Coming to the next tone, which is derisive, disparaging. This basically refers to belittling someone. This is synonymous to contemptuous, but contemptuous is basically trying to portray a disdain or a contempt. But derisive and disparaging is what you will mark as your answer when the author is trying to belittle someone. Now, you can be having disdain or you can contempt someone, but you cannot be belittle someone. So, if you are belittling someone, your tone answer would be derisive, disparaging. But if you are showing the contempt but you are not belittling the person, then your answer would be contemptuous. 14th one among the tones list is dogmatic. Now, dogmatic means the author is trying to portray assertive opinions in a very very arrogant and in a dictatorial way. Now, this basically means that the author is saying that whatever I am saying is all correct. I am being over assertive about my point of view. I am not giving any weightage to anyone else's point of view. I am being completely irrational by being over assertive about a certain point of view. Now, the moment you read this kind of a passage, your answer is going to be dogmatic tone, where the author is assertive but in a very arrogant way. The next set of tones is first emotional. Now, emotional is basically where the author is reflecting that he is very easily affected by the feelings like love, hate, and fear. This is basically going to be your answer for abstract passages. This is a very, very rare answer to occur. So, usually, emotional will not be the answer, or say an emotional passage would not be given to you in examination. But yes, it could happen that the author is over expressing love, hate, or fear, and that's where you can say that the author is emotional. The next one is ethical. When the passage is dealing with principles of morality, honesty, righteousness, etc., then you can say that the tone of the passage is ethical. Then the next one is euphemistic. Now, this basically refers to the substitution of mild, indirect, or vague expression for one thought to be offensive, harsh, or blunt. RC passages in this kind of tone generally make use of indirect and implicit statements. Now, basically what I mean over here is, if I am trying to be harsh to someone but I don't want to be direct about it, like I am when I am contemptuous, or when I am sarcastic, or when I am having a satirical tone, but in euphemistic I am still being harsh to the person, but I am using the indirect way of speaking about it. I am not being very outright about it, but I am being very mild about it. I am talking very subtly about it. Then my answer will be euphemistic. The next set of tones, grandiose. Now, this basically refers to when the author is trying to be much more elaborative than it is necessary. He is being very pompous or too elaborative or too descriptive about a particular thing. Usually, abstract passages utilize a grandiose tone of writing. Then the next one is humanistic. Now, humanistic basically refers to the fact that the author is trying to show a keen interest in human affairs, nature, welfare, values, etc. Passages cover issues related to welfare, values, and other such human affairs. Now, this is different from, the tones where we have earlier talked about, expressing your regret or sorrow for someone who has suffered through these things. Humanistic does not necessarily mean that the author is trying to be showing certain kind of empathy to someone who has suffered through a war or or any of those kind of things. But here he is just talking in general about welfare, values, and other human affairs, thus showing the human approach, the human insight of the author. That is where you are going to go for humanistic as the tone. The next tone is humorous, which is basically referring to funny and amusing. Now the author is trying to convey the messaging of the passage in a very light-hearted and straightforward manner. Now the difference between humorous and sarcasm and satire is, humorous means where the author is expressing everything in a very straightforward way, but in satire and sarcasm, author is not expressing his light-heartedness or the criticism or the amusement in a straightforward way, but he is using different methodologies to express the amusement part. But in humorous, the author is being very direct and straightforward. That's where you will demarcate between humorous and satire versus sarcasm. The next set is first, introspective. Now here basically the author is trying to talk about one's own internal state of feelings, and and this is again a very very rare answer to be found in CAT examination or for any other MBA entrance examination. Introspective would be my answer when the author is trying to quote a lot of examples from his past life and is throwing some thoughts which he is having in his internal mind state. That's where introspective is going to be the answer. The next tone is incendiary. This basically means something which is causing strong feelings. If your passage is talking about inciting people in a negative or a positive direction through speeches of orators and leaders. Now this is a very important part to remember, that only if the passage is using speeches of orators and leaders to provocate someone in a negative or a positive direction, usually in a negative direction, then the tone is incendiary. Now the next tone is laudatory. Now this basically means I am praising and applauding someone, but I am praising and applauding someone with the justification linked to it. I have facts, figures, and rationale to support that. Why am I applauding a person? Then my tone is laudatory. Only if I have the facts to justify my reason to applaud someone, that is when I will go for laudatory as the tone. Next one is motivating. This is again inciting people. Now while incendiary was about inciting majorly in the negative direction and sometimes in the positive direction, motivating is always inciting in a good way in the positive direction. The difference here is, now motivation lies when you are using examples from the past, examples of the people who have achieved certain things in life and people who have done big things in their life, and you are using those examples as a positive thing and not just the speeches. Now if my passage is just using speeches to provocate someone or to incite someone, then I will go for incendiary. But if my passage is using examples from other people's lives and quoting them as an analogy or as a similarity, then I will say that the passage tone is motivating. The 24th one here, it's basically when I am trying to be a yes man for someone. So for example, the passage is talking about, say, politicians and their yes man, or say the author is portraying himself as a yes man for a politician or a person who is at a higher position. Then my tone is obsequious. Now here again I am talking about where I am trying to flatter someone by being over obedient. That's where this is going to be my answer. And even if this is my answer, this is going to happen in very rare cases for the passages which I'm going to get in the examination. The next one is pedestrian. Here basically the author lacks creativity, he lacks innovation, and he is being very simple in portraying his ideas. The passage is just talking about commonplace things and ideas, and that too put up in a very very simple and descriptive English rather than adopting any special innovation or method. That's where I will say that the tone of the passage is pedestrian. The next set, first is populist. As the name suggests, anything which is pertaining to the characteristics of common people, working class, who have huge population or say a huge majority. That then my tone is populist, where the author is not defying or going against the common belief, but is supporting the common belief. That's when the tone is populist. Provocative, again inciting, it is synonymous to incendiary. Again, it is usually in the negative way, and it is again through the speeches. Again, incendiary and provocative won't be two different options in the examination. It will be either the same option or only one of them you will find in the options. Both of them will not be the option simultaneously as different options. 28th, romantic. Here people are trying to be too fanciful, unrealistic, extravagant, just like you see in Karan Johar movies or Shah Rukh Khan movies, portraying something in a very, very fantasizing way, where it may be very, very far from the reality, or say it's very, very fictitious in nature. Then that's where romantic tone comes into the picture. And again, it's going to be your answer only in abstract passages. It's not going to be your answer in non-abstract passages. Then the next tone is sarcastic. This basically means harsh, bitter, taunting. Now then the next tone is satirical, again where you are taunting someone. Now the difference, and a very frequent occurring confusion between students is when to mark a sarcastic tone, when to mark a satire. Now the difference is, in satire I am trying to portray a constructive criticism through ridiculing someone, like you would have seen movies around political satires, etc. Here I am using a light-hearted mode of expressing criticism, but it is mostly in a constructive way, where I want the person to improve, where I am highlighting his negativities and I want the person to improve. But in sarcastic tone, I am actually not wanting the person to improve. I am not trying to portray any constructive criticism, but I am just trying to be very scornful. I am trying to I'm trying to be very harsh at the person, and I'm trying to build a negative opinion about that particular person. That is when I will say that my tone is sarcastic. So in satire, I want the person to improve. I want the person to take my satire objective as a constructive criticism, but in sarcastic tone, I am not bothered about whether the person improves or not. I just want to portray his negative image to everyone, and I am trying to contempt him, belittle him, taunt him in a very, very harsh way. That's where I will mark sarcastic as a tone. The next one is speculative, where the author is continuously using a lot of theories which do not exist, but he's just trying to create hypothetical theories and hypothetical expert opinions. That's where I will say that the tone of the passage is speculative. The next set is where I'm talking about the technical tone. This basically refers to very, very technical passages, where the passage is full of terminology, or say a lot of technical terms around any subject area. This may not necessarily be engineering, this could be medical, this could be manufacturing, this could be biotechnology, this could be any field, but the passage is full of technical terms, and just using those to elaborate a particular point of view. Then the next tone is vitriolic. Now this basically refers to full of anger and hatred. This is again similar to contemptuous, but again contemptuous and vitriolic is not something which you will find simultaneously as different options in the examination. The last one is vituperative. This basically means where the author is trying to be criticizing a particular subject in a very, very cruel and angry way. Again, 33 and 34 is what you will find very rarely to be given to you in the examinations, but they may come as synonym to say contemptuous. Usually you will find 33 and 34, but they are again linked to being very harsh, cruel, angry to someone, and showing a lot of hatred. So with this, instead of 34, we have covered 35 tones, because in between we have missed the counter at one place. So total of 35 tones have been covered in this video, which would act as the right repository for you to come and revise again the tones of the passages, and you know which option to mark when. We have tried to showcase some commonly confused tones as well, and when to go for which one. With this, we come to the end of this session. We wish you all the best for all your MBA entrance examinations which you are planning to take ahead. And yes, do not forget to hit the bell icon on the top right hand side for subscribing to the channel. And please do download Careerna MBA app today from Play Store and access free videos and articles. Thank you everyone. Wish you all the best for the examinations.